welcome the DeFi Saver team to go ahead and take over and show us what you guys are working with.
Hey guys, I'm Milos. I'm the support guy at DeFi Saver, basically helping users out on a daily basis, showing them around the app, helping out with some common issues and answering questions. So I'm going to dive straight into explaining what DeFi Saver is, how you can use it. You guys already gave a good introduction in terms of what lending protocols are, how DeFi works in general, and you did a good setup so that I can follow up with how we actually solve some of the problems that you outlined previously. So the first thing I would mention is, before we dive into anything, DeFi Saver has a simulation mode. So you can tick a button here and start fresh from a new account in a test environment. That's going to give you basically fake ETH to work around with and just test transactions out, test stuff out, and have a hands-on experience yourself. So as we were already mentioning, lending is kind of the main use case of DeFi Saver, aggregating different lending protocols. We already mentioned Aave, but some of the more popular ones include Compound, Maker, Spark, Fluid, Morpho, and Liquidity. Now, aside from just lending protocols, the idea is that DeFi Saver is a super app. That's how we like to view it. That's how we like to communicate about it. So we also include certain vaults. Pardon me. There's a quick update here. So certain vaults that let you earn passive yield right here, where we can go to the smart savings page, open up a certain vault, and then deposit assets into it. And what we deposit here is going to show up on the portfolio page. Likewise, we can go to, for example's sake, we just integrated today Hyperliquid, which lets you trade perpetuals. So you can also go to DeFi Saver and trade on perps. We just released it, so there's going to be some hiccups right here. That's not the main showcase of this anyways, but just something to keep in mind. And then, of course, Aave and the other lending protocols. So the idea is, instead of going to 3, 4, 5 different platforms to do some of the DeFi actions you want to do, if you want to deploy different strategies, some passive options, some more active options like lending and borrowing, you can do that through the same app. But also importantly, you can do it through the same UI, because we have a coherent, similar UI across all the protocols. Right now I'm on Aave, but if I go to Compound, it's going to be a similar UI. And then if I go to Spark, it's going to be a similar UI. Otherwise, you would have to go to each of these apps individually and go through their own UI, which is always going to be a bit different. So it's going to take getting used to each individual UI. This way, we're kind of removing that issue. So what I would start off with here is actually our Discover page, because this is one of the first steps in kind of making DeFi easier when it comes to borrowing and lending. What does it do? Think of it this way. There's a ton of protocols for lending and borrowing. Each of them have their own assets available at their own borrow rates and their own supply rates. So as you can see right here, there's at least 10 protocols we can choose from. Just on Aave, we can see that there's a lot of different assets available to be borrowed. We can see that ETH supply rate is at 155%, but we can see all of these different assets we can borrow, and they all have different borrow rates. So what does that mean? Well, borrowing one asset is going to be more expensive than borrowing another. And without this tool, you might need to do a lot of manual work with searching, okay, what's the rate of this asset? What's the borrow rate of this asset? How much am I going to be earning or losing if I borrow with it? So in this case, what I can do is just say, I know that I have ETH as my collateral. That's all I know. And I want to borrow, say, I have $100,000 worth of it. I want to borrow $75,000. And now this is going to show me all of the positions that will actually allow me to make this big of a borrow, and I will see how much I'm going to be actually earning or paying in a year with my position. I can sort it by the APY and see right here that if we supply ETH and borrow Bitcoin, we're going to have basically be earning with that position, but that's not really a common setup. The more common setup is for us to supply ETH and then borrow a stablecoin. So we can just click on stable right here, and we're going to get a list of all of the available options. So interestingly, we can see that on Aave v4, on Ethereum mainnet, if we supply ETH and borrow USDG, we would actually be earning on that position. So that's something to keep in mind. This is a way for us to make finding the right position way easier instead of just having to manually dig through all of the options and try and figure out that way, maybe using Google spreadsheets to figure out the math. This simplifies it. One more example of how we try and simplify DeFi and make complex things sort of one transaction is through the trending page, where we have a strategy, for example, longing ETH on Aave, making it one click. You click on this pop-up right here, and it's going to get you ready to open up a long position on ETH, where you can input the amount, how much you want to leverage it, and what asset do you want to borrow, instead of having to do manual loops directly on Aave. So let me now actually move into, because I don't want to take too much time going to each individual tool. I want to focus on the lending and borrowing side of it so we can go to automations as well. So I'm just going to open a simple leveraged position with ETH. So I'm on the Aave dashboard. And in order to actually open a position on DeFi Saver, we need to have a smart wallet, which we're going to see through this process. Now, what I would mention, what is a safe wallet? What's the point? Or a smart wallet? The regular wallet you might have, like MetaMask and Rabby, it has limited functionalities. Smart wallets are essentially smart contract wallets that let you perform very complex transactions in one transaction on that account, which couldn't actually be done on your MetaMask or your Rabby wallet. So that's why to perform these complex transactions, you need to make a smart wallet that's going to be owned by your main or EOA wallet, as it's known by. So there's two options I can do. I can do a simple supply. So I can supply 5 ETH and I can borrow USDC, let's say 7,000. And the panel on the right-hand side is going to give me a preview of what the position is going to look like. The orange color indicates that it's a bit of a risky position, so it's not entirely safe. This one would definitely qualify for some automation protection. And I can also see what my net APY is going to be. How much am I going to be paying or earning from this position in a year? Now, we already mentioned looping, which means I now borrow this USDC with my ETH. I then go and swap this 7,000 for more ETH. I resupply it. I borrow ETH. I then swap that. And the process goes on and on. So the point is a lot of manual steps there that can be simplified. So if we do want to do those loops, also known as leveraging, I can click on the leverage tab and I can just say, okay, I have 5 ETH. I want to borrow USDC. I'm going to leverage it, let's say 2.5 times. And then DeFi Saver is going to take care of the math, the calculations. And again, we're going to see a preview of what the position is actually going to look like, what the APY is going to look like, what the safety ratio is going to look like. So in this case, I can just go ahead and open up the position. Again, this is in our simulation mode, so you can go through this entire process yourself as well, kind of see what it looks like hands-on. And after I sign the transactions, the position is going to be open right here. So from this dashboard, I can take a basic overview of what the position is like, what the net balance is, again, the APY, the safety ratio, and then how much I'm supplying and how much I'm borrowing. From here, we have simple lending protocol options. I can supply more ETH, I can withdraw ETH, I can borrow more, or I can pay back my debt. Other options that we also have are known as boost and repay. What these do is, for example, I want to repay my debt, but I want to do it with the collateral in my position. This tool is in one transaction going to withdraw the collateral, swap it to the debt asset, and then repay the debt. So just imagine again, these are complex processes that would take a lot of manual work. This makes it available in one transaction. So it simplifies and also optimizes how you manage the position. Outside of that, we also have the options to switch your collateral asset. So maybe you want to move from ETH. If the price starts falling down, you're going to be in danger of liquidation. You might want to switch to a stable coin. You might want to switch your debt asset, or you can also flip your position. So right now I'm going long on ETH because I'm supplying ETH and borrowing a stable coin. I can flip it to supplying a stable coin and borrowing ETH, going short, meaning I'm betting that ETH's price is going to actually decrease. And finally, shifter means you can switch the protocol you're on. Why would you do that? because some protocols might offer better borrow rates for USDC. As we saw on the Discover page, you can always double check there. Maybe you see that, okay, Aave has, we can check right here, a 5% borrow rate on USDC. Maybe Liquidity has a better borrow rate. Let me move to Liquidity and move my position there. So again, the name of the game is, this is something you could do manually as well. You would have to close your entire Aave position though, go to Liquidity and then open a new one there. These are all manual steps. This basically collects it all into one transaction. But now to move on to the most interesting part, which is the automations. So we have various amounts of automations. I would say the main one we have is, or the most popular one is automated leverage management. So what does this do? Well, it's simple in concept. You just say, if we go back to the dashboard here, we see our safety ratio. It's at 133%. So as ETH's price starts to decrease, so is our safety ratio. And once it falls to 96.98%, we get liquidated, which we want to avoid. So we can already have in mind, okay, if ETH's price starts decreasing, let's say by 120% of a safety ratio, that's when I would like for my position to be repaid automatically so that my safety ratio goes up again. So I would go here, automated leverage management, and here I would be able to say, let me just, for this example, switch to our live mode, just so I can, there's a note that it doesn't work in simulation mode, but I just want to show you right here what that would look like. So zooming in here, I can say if the ratio falls below 135% here, I could say 120%. I want my ratio to be maintained at 150%. So once my position hits 120% here, it's going to automatically repay my debt so that the safety ratio gets bumped up to 150%. What I can also do is I can say if my position becomes healthier, so if ETH's price starts increasing and my safety ratio goes up, now my position is way safer. That means I can actually borrow more and swap that to ETH and then resupply that to my position. So I can increase my leverage, which is going to make my position a bit unsafer. But we're okay with that because I might say, okay, when it's above 165%, I'm okay with you increasing my leverage, which bumps down the safety ratio to 150%. And the thing to have in mind is that this is a system that works automatically. You just set it up and that's it. It works on its own. So it's going to be keeping your position safe, but you can also look at ways to increase your leverage when the price of ETH starts going up. So it's also primarily, of course, liquidation management, risk management, but there's an element of also capitalizing because you might increase your leverage and then ETH's price keeps going up. You're going to actually be earning more due to the fact that you entered early enough and increased your leverage. Aside from this, we also have a stop loss automation and a take profit automation. This one is pretty simple in concept. You just say that at which price of your collateral do you want to close the position down. So if ETH's price falls too much, I can see here that my liquidation price is 1543. I might say, hey, if I don't want to get liquidated, I want to cut my losses if need be. When ETH's price reaches 1800, that's when I would like for my position to be closed. So not repaid partially, but fully closed, and the rest of my collateral would be withdrawn to my wallet. Take profit, on the other hand, kind of works the similar way, except that it's in terms of price increases. So right now, if I go down here, I'm going to see that ETH's price is at 2129. So I might think, well, when its price reaches 2300, that's when I want to lock in my gains and I want to repay all my debt and I want to close my position. So I would be able to say that right here. Moving on, we have a boost on target price and repay on target price automations. So what we mentioned with automated leverage management, where it automatically repays debt and it automatically increases leverage. Increasing leverage is basically the boost tool, and repaying is, of course, the repay tool. Now, instead of setting specific safety ratios, you would set a specific price. So I want to increase my leverage when ETH's price goes over 2300. That means I'm telling the automation when its price reaches 2300, that's when I want you to actually boost to a specific safety ratio. And also repay works the same way. I can say when the price goes under a certain amount, that's when I want to repay, Or I also want to say, if ETH's price goes actually above 21.29, that means that I can actually afford to take a bit of that collateral and just repay my debt without losing too much exposure to ETH. And finally, a newer automation that we introduced is actually the collateral switch automation. So again, what's the idea there? Well, if ETH's price starts to fall, there's no indicator at all times that it's ever going to stop falling, right? We don't know that. We will never know if its price is just going to stop falling if there's a really strong bear market. So what you might want to do is say, okay, I want to somehow cut my losses. So let me switch my asset from ETH. After a certain price, I want to switch it to USDT or maybe USDC, a certain stable coin. So that way, imagine if ETH right now falls to 2100, and I think, okay, if it's going to keep falling more and more, I'm concerned it might fall to 2000. This automation is going to figure out, okay, so when ETH's price goes under 2100, I know that I should change the entire amount to USDC. So what happens then is ETH's price falls to 2000, but I'm not actually experiencing that loss because I switched to a stable coin that doesn't move in price when it fell to 2100. And again, this is a system that works automatically. You give it approval to work with your Aave position, and then it handles everything automatically. Now, Aave isn't the only protocol we have automations on. I would say that it's the most versatile in terms of the options and tools we have, but we also have automations on other protocols as well. So that's the main use case of our automations. I would just also mention that there's the option of staking, which is kind of earning passive income. You're just supplying your asset, staking it, locking it up on Aave, and earning yield from that. There's also the notify tool, where you can essentially put Telegram notifications when, for example, your position's safety ratio falls under a certain amount. Now, again, this is not going to replace automations because you still need to be awake to see that your ratio is under 120%, but it is a good way to kind of be aware what's happening with your position. So that's something to keep in mind. That's a very useful tool to kind of stay on top of your Aave position at all times. And then, of course, we have the history tool, which is going to actually show you all of the transactions associated with your Aave position. Now, the example I'm looking at here is a pretty old Aave position all the way back from 2024. And I can see all of the transactions associated with it. And if I were to click on any of these transactions, I would get taken to Etherscan, which basically is a website that lets you break down transactions that happen on the blockchain. And I can take a look at this transaction, see a lot more details. But I don't think that Etherscan is a beginner tool. I would say it falls along with the advanced level. But it's a useful tool to have nonetheless. And that's kind of the main gist of the dashboard when it comes to managing your position, automating it. There are certain other options I would mention. If your position accumulates some rewards, you can also claim them through the dashboard right here. And then also when you decide to close the position, it's as simple as clicking close, and you're going to get a pop-up window where you can actually choose. You're going to be able to choose how you want to close your position. Do you want to close it and then withdraw your assets in your collateral, or do you want to swap everything to your debt asset, repay the debt, and then withdraw everything into your debt asset? Now, one thing I would mention is that these advanced tools like automations and boost, repay, basically these advanced transactions that include a swap within them, they have a DeFi saver fee, and that's our business model. That's the only place where we actually take fees on. Just using DeFi saver, using all the basic protocol tools that exist on Aave as well, those don't have any kind of fee. It's just these advanced tools that have a fee, and that fee is going to be communicated through the UI at all times before you're actually going to execute a transaction. Now, what I would mention is that for everybody attending this course, we're going to be offering basically a no-fee model. The only thing we would need is your smart wallet, which you can get right here. So when you click on this wallet dropdown, it's going to show you your smart wallet. For this account, we have a lot of smart wallets, but yours is only going to be showing one. So you click right here. That's going to copy the smart wallet address, and then you can send it to us, for example, through the in-app chat. That's perfectly fine. Or perhaps send it after this course finishes up, and we're going to whitelist the smart wallet, we're going to basically make it so that there are no fees for using DeFi Saver, which can help you just after you've used simulation mode and decided to deploy some funds on live mode. It's always good to at least avoid those fees. So what I will also be doing is I'm going to be sharing some useful resources if you want to learn more about DeFi Saver, but also some DeFi use cases in general. We have a knowledge base that covers basically everything about DeFi Saver, all of the strategies available, all of the protocols, and it covers it in quite a bit of detail. We also have our blog that posts about every single new thing showing up on DeFi Saver. There's also newsletters that cover the most latest news and happenings within DeFi in the past month. And the Pick DeFi channel is our new project where we're making, I mean, the name says it, YouTube videos on why somebody should pick DeFi. And they're more of an educational nature rather than being aimed towards very advanced DeFi users. So perhaps it's going to be also useful for you to take a look at and kind of get familiar with some concepts that you heard about, but maybe a video guide would be much more easier to follow. One thing I would just also mention, when you now go back to the portfolio page, that's where you can see all the positions you've opened up so far. This account has quite a few positions, but you can see they're all going to be represented here, whether it's a staking position, a borrow position, a vault, even hyperliquid perp positions are going to be showing up. I just don't know if we have one right here. Okay, so we even have that. And that's kind of also the idea. There's a unified interface for all of your DeFi strategies and your DeFi actions. And that's how I would wrap up my hands-on walkthrough. Alex, I don't know if you maybe want to mention anything that we didn't cover that we should.
Hey guys, I think that was it, to be exact. We do have a fee waiver program for all of you that want to onboard to DeFi Saver and try all of this yourself. So in order to do that, you would have to make a smart wallet and just send us the address and we will take care of it for you. That's all I have to mention right now. I will send the details in the community chat or to the Knowit Owlz crew, and you can handle it from there. That's all.
Thank you.
Awesome. That was great. Thank you. Thank you so much. Everyone, we are going to hop into, for those of you that are live, you can participate in the live Q&A. So for those of you, as always, you're more than welcome to turn your cameras on. You definitely need to turn your mics on. And then for those of you that want to take advantage of the incentives that they're talking about, we're actually going to be dropping in a form for you to be able to drop your wallet information into, and so that the DeFi team will have access to all of that.